welcome to the art hole. Yes. Right. Let's get this into. Good. That appears to be working. Excellent. Import. And Now I've got to figure out where I put it, which shouldn't be that difficult, but sometimes it is awkward. Oh yeah, I was going to investigate this. This is not technically what I'm doing. Oh, that's also not one of those. Okay. There's always that little bit of awkwardness where you think, I'll just do that, and then it don't work. And it's like, oh, right, I see. That's fine. So what are you? You are for books. Right, well, I'll do the investigation first because I might as well. This isn't technically part of the whole. This isn't really part of the point, but I was curious and wanted to look at it. This is not a scheduled stream, mate. No, it is not. It is not a scheduled stream. It is a bonus stream of fiddling in Blender. But welcome, Gimli. Welcome. 521. There we go. Let's have a look at this and see if we can. I'm curious how the bike is built is the crucial detail. So I don't need that. Oh, he big boy now. When you break the link to the thing, they turn into an enormous version of themselves. So let's have a look. Possibly mostly in the inside, but equally. Just sifting round. I mean, there's a couple of thin bits of wire there that I doubt would ever actually work for what I'm doing, but outside of that, I mean, it does appear to be a fairly solid piece of geometry. I wonder if it's, yeah, I loosely thought it would probably be broken into pieces. And it was at some point had a symmetry modifier. I mean, Hero Forge isn't too bad. I think one of the other people who've ended up sort of fiddling with stuff like Blender, they specified that when dealing with a rig, it does actually function surprisingly like Hero Forge. Oh, that's interesting. Is that really? Oh no. No, it must have just been my mistake, that's fair. I thought one of their sort of parts was just attached to a random... Oh, no, okay. There we go. It's a very strange system, the Control L, because... Or the L, basically it's linking. Basically what I'm doing at the moment, for anybody particularly interested, is you select a point and then you can hit... Well, now, see, theoretically, yeah, it should just be L. And on a couple of these, there you go, see, L has just worked. But for some reason on this one, no, that one's what... And yet that point, no, that... Oh, sometimes I hate it when these things just do random bits and pieces. But yeah, I can't deny, I'm ripping this bike apart, because it makes no real odds to proceedings, but I think... Oh, you made the minis for the loud D&D character in Hero Forge, and they turned out so good that Lawson even printed them. Nice. I did not see that, but that is quite something. Yeah, that's a weird bit there. But yeah, this is what I sort of... I tend to fiddle around with video game models to see if they're going to work suitably for a sort of cheeky 3D print. And I must admit, this bike is impressing me, because I think it is just solid geometry, and therefore will work quite nicely. Although there is a sort of... I mean, it's clearly an intentional hole. There is meant to be a hole in the sort of rear fender, but that could be an issue. But then again, I could make some adjustments, fill that hole if I particularly wanted to. Plus, I don't plan on using it as a Ghost Rider bike, in fairness. I want it as a random bike. on a base rather than an actual thing. But yeah, you can do sort of quite interesting things in Blender. So I'll tell you what, we'll just start again, because I was just experimenting and finding out about that bike. The actual task that I plan on doing today is having a play with MCP extras. Where are you? There you are, there you are, there you are, and there you are. This large unit here is a large unit called Rhino, and I plan on potentially having a play with Rhino. I like Blender, and Blender is free. The benefit of Blender is it is free. So you can play around with it to your heart's content. And the benefit here is this video game model has a texture. So the basic principles, let's set up I'm going to set this up first as well. That's it. So I can put this magnet snapping on as well. Oh, it very much is. And it's a powerful program, getting more and more powerful with every release of the program. Every single release it brings out something more powerful and rivaling its greatest sort of peers in the other sort of form, you know. So it's a jack of all trades. So it's, you know, it doesn't do textures as well as something like Substance Painter, I think. It doesn't do sculpting as well as something like ZBrush. It doesn't do... Actually, I think modelling-wise, I think it does it just as well as anything from 3ds Max territory, whatever the company name is. Of course, I forgot to add the Marvel part. Marvel will suffice. Currently, I'm just sort of looking up and trying to figure out a suitable pose for my little Rhino boy. I am pretty much doing this from scratch. I have imported the file, and I will try and pose him into a suitable file, a suitable pose. But sometimes it is difficult to figure out poses, both in a sort of dynamic, interesting sense, and in a sort of woo, do the can. You're going to make him do the can-can? I might make him do the can-can. Are you really thinking you're going to make him do the can? I mean, it is not 100% impossible, I don't think, to make him do the can-can. I probably want on the Z a little bit, yeah, because you want the leg out a little bit as well. Oh, and we forgot to. Whoops. A little out of control, but apart from that, we're fine. Oops, no, not G. Z. Try and locate that foot down a bit more. This is entirely pointless, I'd like to just point out. But you know what? Sometimes... Are you not able to do that? Oh, no, there is. Look, I just... There you go. I knew you could do it, Blender. I knew you could do it. And now, I suppose arguably... Yeah, no, that should be fine. So what we want to do... I think it's I? Yeah, it is. Oh, here he goes. I don't think that worked.
Hello there.
Is it just K then? No, I think it is I. Hello there, Mr. Blue-Boosh. Welcome. I am playing with Blender again. Insert keyframe of already existing F curves. No, okay. Location and rotation. That should probably be sufficient. And then what we want to do is just make him go like that. And a little on the Z. No. Okay, I've done that wrong. I need to go. Always remember to move it along the bar. A little bit that way. And now back down. Hide that armature. He's a little bit slow, but he's fundamentally doing. Oh, look at me! Way! Oh, I've gotten distracted with stupid things. I'm not saying I don't like the fact that I've gotten distracted with stupid things. It's just, it does feel like maybe I shouldn't have gotten distracted with stupid things. Let's try and speed that up there, and then 15, so that it matches the other one. I suppose, can you? I'm not sure. I think it would require a certain level of... Yeah, I think it would require more fiddling than I'm willing to put in right now. But... Excellent. So good. So good. Yes, he came with a rig. So I'm just... Right. Right. Now what we have to do is remove those keyframes. And then theoretically that should no longer do anything, correct? Excellent. And now the other thing we want to do is, just in case, we want to clear the transforms on all of them, which is lucky because there we go. So yes, he does come with a rig. Now really what I should be using is the global ones, I think. X. Actually not made much difference, the global versus non-global, but look at my power stance. But other than that, let's just clear those transforms again, just in case. I don't think there was any that time, but you know, might as well. Right, so we're now into the seriousness of figuring out a pose, which is going to be probably more difficult. I am now sort of, there won't be much happening in Blender, but Tex Avery, what the older did I go into something else? No, that is Can. Christ, I literally just said it and it completely disappeared. Right, let's have a look and see. I suppose arguably it's probably going to try and become one of those sort of charging poses. But still, if you have a chair, there is an awesome comic pose with Rhino sitting. Oh, I mean, arguably, there is an argument that says, in terms of chair, that's the other thing I should probably do, try and make him roughly the right size as well first. But what else do you need for a chair? Tell you what, the easiest way of doing that. Not quite the right one. Oh, don't know. This isn't going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. I'd need to put more thought into it. But technically, building a chair would not be difficult. I've made it look difficult there by making a complete arse off of it. But theoretically, building a chair is not one of the more difficult things to actually do, because it is all pretty much all blocks and stuff. So it's not too bad. But I don't know. I haven't got a firm pose in mind, so I am technically open to suggestions. But I am thinking I probably want it in a sort of one of his charging sort of poses. So he's got that sort of I'm coming at you, like Cleopatra. So yeah, that one's not a bad one. As I say, just as a warning, there is going to be muttering and mumbling as I sort of sift through and look at different bits and bobs. I mean, that is an interesting one. It does. The one I've just found, I suppose technically I could probably put it on the screen, but probably won't be that difficult to do. Where are you? Window. Oh, well, there's the window. I've just realised I don't know what is on there. Nothing of any real significance. Excellent. Yeah, there's nothing of any significance there. So it doesn't make too much difference if it's seen. Oh, transform, fit to screen. There we go. That should be fine. Excellent. But yeah, this one here. Oh, is the? I thought I told you to capture the cursor. I did tell you to capture the cursor. You're just choosing not to. Fair enough, I suppose. But anyway, the image on the right hand side. It looks a bit too much like he's cupping someone's balls, which I mean I don't necessarily think he shouldn't be cupping someone's balls. If he wishes to cup someone's balls, he can cup someone's balls. However, I don't necessarily want my rhino to be cupping someone's balls. But yes, that is quite something. That is a very different side of rhino that you don't usually see. But yeah, that's quite an amusing one. Whoops, pushed the wrong button. There we go. So let's see. Carry on scrolling. Oh, where was the one that actually did sort of slightly... Oh, there's another sort of flowery based one. I don't quite like that because I feel like that's a little too extreme for what I'm after. Which I realise is another one of those sort of... is it too extreme? Is it not extreme enough? I want it just right. But yeah, I have lost the one I actually quite liked. Shit. Where did you go? Where did you go? I don't know. I don't know where it went, but it definitely went, didn't it? It's not a bad one. Suitable sort of heaviness. Grab that. That's quite nice. Sort of smashing a pillar is not necessarily an unreasonable thing. I might be able to replicate something like that. That's an interesting one. That one definitely looks a bit too. Don't disturb me. I'm having a shit. And it's proving difficult. It's not coming out. It's not easy, mate. It's not easy. It's just give us a minute. Yeah. Interesting. Pair of them fondling Cap's shield there. Try Marvel Rhino cover. I suppose that might not go amiss, unless you're putting me down a garden path of terrible things. You know what it shows, and anyway, did I decide to grab that? That was the other one as well. Did we? Oh right, no, I've gone. Whoops. There we go. I mean, that's quite something, but that's a lot. The Paul Giamatti version. Oh, is that the... Yeah, I think I know the one you mean. That's the big Robo, the biggest of the Robo ones. I must admit, this one is the PS4 Spider-Man one, and I do like that one. It's just enough sort of robot-y style battle armour of the modern era to satisfy, whilst also being that it is a big man in a big suit. So I think they did a really good job with that one. That's a video game as well, isn't it? What's that one? Just sort of looks like he's coming in there. Oh, hello! I am Rhino. The animated Spider-Man series. Again, that's the one we already have, isn't it? Yeah. Which is quite a nice one. That one's not necessarily terrible. Charging in there. And there we go, I think that's the other one. Oh, there he is, sort of intimidating Miles, isn't it? I did keep leaning straight back to that one. Yeah, I think the sort of fundamentals we've got from the game model, because I will just clarify completely. Oh, you can't see that because it doesn't change windows. This is a video game model. I have not done this. This is a video game model. This is the work of, I don't know specifically which video game it's come from. I don't know if that information is available to me. No, not immediately at least. But it is from a video game. That's the crucial detail. Because I imagine I can figure out some kind of sort of crushed something or other. Oh, that was the other one I was looking at. I don't necessarily want to fiddle around with a car and therefore fiddle around with a load of other bits, but I don't necessarily mind fiddling about, just not really with the entire car. Oh, I've just realised, of course, I need to re-establish that connection in order for you to see the Rhino I was talking about, left-hand side again. So again, that's that same pose I keep coming back to. Which arguably, if I keep coming back to it, it might be the one I like. Oh, there's actually C27's one. So I don't necessarily want to do much that's too close to that, because of course I want it to be semi-unique. I mean, it's never going to be fully unique because it's not 100% my model, so but that doesn't necessarily mean I can't have it at least slightly more unique than that, or different to that to make it slightly unique. Well, there's the Contest of Champions one. Yeah, he doesn't seem too bothered by Miles there, does he? Although he's lost a hell of a lot of health. Oh, there. Oh, who's? That is the game. I think that is the model we're looking at in Blender. What game it is, I do not know. I suppose I could look it up slightly further, see if it crops up. It does not. But there's several images here. We'll scroll through and see what happens. Blimey. There's a hell of an image. Stuck in the middle, and I don't care, I'm the Hulk. Oh, it is. Okay, that makes a degree of sense then. Strike Force. Marvel Strike Force. That's the video game it's from. That is definitely the correct, because of course it was in the file. It's called the Rhino SF. So Strike Force makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think, I must admit, I'm leaning more and more towards something like that. I think we might do something like that, because it's a good sort of, I'm going to try and fuck you up, but not right now. In a moment or two, I'm going to fuck you up. So I think that might be quite fun. Hello, old Zine. Welcome. We are trying to figure out a rhino. A rhino. So we can probably ditch that Finder capture. And now we just need to sort of... Now, the question is, how best to do this, I wonder. What might be worthwhile. I don't think that's going to allow for that. No, of course not. We'll try this method. That'll do. There we go. Excellent. I like the Strike Force models. What format are they? It would seem... Now, I don't know. Let's just double check the other file, because then I might be able to tell you whether they change or don't change. Oh, I don't know. There's no obvious sign that that is or is not. There's no obvious sign whether that's Strike Force or not. But I'm assuming this Rhino certainly is the XNS, XPS, XPS. I don't know why I always think of it as an N, but I do, so it's a fact. Cock. I always forget that bit. We've got to paste it special. No, I don't want to do that. I want to... The most awkward way of getting a bloody image. But there you go. Never mind. These things are sent to try us. Rhino. There we go. I think overnight. Okay, one more step. Eventually, I'll start moving things in Blender. I promise. But this is the slight problem with like basically doing the whole thing from scratch. Is there's a lot of planning time, and planning time unfortunately does take a degree of time. A little bit of sort of mumbling and fumbling, which is the name of my autobiography. When I was a sort of... Let's have a look, see... I'm trying to gauge the best image of this to grab, essentially. Because it never actually has to be exact, but it would be nice to sort of have a fair approximation of what he's doing in the image. Yeah, that's probably the best front-facing image there is of that pose. No, that's all wrong. There we go. That folder in there. Thank you very much. Having it from the side there might not go amiss. He's got a bit of a lean on. Whoops, no, not copy, save. There we go. Yeah, it's got a bit of a lean on, which shouldn't be too difficult to replicate again, but you never know. Now, let's try and get those available for my viewing, so that I can hopefully maybe try and construct something that will be not intolerable, we shall see. It's always difficult to say. Now, yes, I want to measure. No, okay, where's... I need the whole kit out. Which is slightly inconvenient, but there you go. There we go. So, a couple of things we want. So, let's find ourselves. Where are those files? I don't know. I'll find them eventually. That one, I believe. Does that line up with the calculation I'm expecting? I'm now very much doing things in a physical, real world sense, so going to be very difficult for you to know what I'm up to now. Okay, so yeah, 65mm. So that makes very sense. I'm now looking other things up and seeing if we can get a nice base. Although I might end up making it relatively custom, like last time. So that's probably the one I'll go for. But I'm curious. I've not looked at them, so I'm going to have a butcher's at these. And I know, again, it's very unfortunate, but you can't see any of them. It's fine. I assure you, you're not missing out on anything too severe. Oh, I see, that's 2 halves of a hydrant. But yeah, that's sort of... They're nice, but they're not necessarily spectacular. So I don't think we need to worry about that. So let's just grab one. Grab the basic one and stick it in there. 65mm, the flat mill, 65. Oh, yes, of course. 65 is a big boy. 180, so that's correct there. And I'm relatively certain. Yeah, I was going to say that. Annoyingly. Set origin to... I'm not convinced that's in the middle. Although, having said that, yeah. No, that might be. Anyway, big round circle. Object. Selection of cursor. That's it. And now, hello, Rhino. You appear to have sunk into. You appear to have sunk into a very large base. Pop you down, something like that. None of this necessarily has to be fully precise, but there we go. Scaling is working nicely, excellent. And now it's not going to necessarily be precise, but I'm going to base it off of the Hulk's size, which comes in at about just shy of 70mm. Yeah. About 65 to 70mm, something along those lines. Oh, there's the base. Excellent. So, this is not necessarily the optimal method of doing this sort of thing, but this is the way I tend to do it, which is I'm going to have some measuring cubes to be able to measure my rhino against. It's just... They're no longer cubes, granted. They're more just a sort of oblong, but I don't know. It works. It gives a visual representation of how big you are expecting them to be, which helps greatly, I find. I suppose if we go sort of 65, that was a 65, wasn't it? Yes. So if we go 65 based on his head, that means his horn is bringing him about the size of the Hulk, potentially. Well, that's difficult to know for certain because the Hulk is slightly crouched, and I didn't really factor that in, but I think in terms of... Don't do that. In terms of acceptable sized models, I think better to go 69. Nice. Okay, so yeah, depending on precisely what I do with his tootsies, they might, I suppose I might try and build some kind of crushing underneath there in some fashion. So let's save the blender file, because otherwise we will be very sad if it decides to die on me. So let's have a look. Ski. and see if we can't do something about this pose. So we want to go to pose mode in the armature, local in our transform orientations. I believe it didn't make much difference for the legs, but it might make some difference for the fingers, because you can see there that is possibly still being an awkward sausage in terms of its positioning, but that's its X, that's its rolling on Y, and oh, that's snapped his finger. Yeah, I can't remember. I did it last time and I still can't remember it, but there was the bone constraints, copy rotation, target is the armature, bone is the whatever this one is, left hand index 2. Good God, there's a lot of bones. Whoops, no, not that one. Don't do that. Left hand index 2. And then local space, and then this one. I don't know if this is going to necessarily help, but it might just sort of make some difference. Index 1, local space, and now theoretically, when I go like that, still needs a little bit more, or it would, which is unfortunate because I can't now manually rotate it. Blast. So probably not worth the bother, because especially we are going to want to try and sort of really make a proper fist. So no, all right, that was all entirely pointless. It's fine. It was nice to remember how to do it. That's about as far as we can go with that. It's nice that I remembered how to do the thing. So I believe that's the control bone. So kind of want that. It's kind of, wait, no, he's kind of like, kind of a bit more like that. Oh, that's awkward. Brain does not like calculating this. Something like that. And I believe which one of these is. That might be the head. So. Yeah. I'm just sort of looking at you going, yeah? The fuck are you doing to my limbs, mate? The fuck are you doing to my limbs? Look, you be careful with my limbs. My limbs are my own. Yeah? I don't want you fucking them about, mate. Woo! Look, I can kick myself in the head. Anyway, stop mucking about. This is the other benefit of local, because now if I dropped it to global, that leg is going to do that. Whereas now, if I do local, you can see that leg doesn't quite do that. It's still not perfect, but it doesn't do it as badly as it did previously. He does have sort of wide crotch. You get a bit of twisting there, which is not optimal, but might be a case of don't care. What are you? You are the hips, which I suppose arguably we do perhaps want. Okay, that's going to rotate the entire thing, which is acceptable enough, but I think we probably want more that one. Yeah, I think that's more what we want. Something like that. Oh dear, that's not quite... Alright, that's not so bad. It looks a bit like he's doing sort of step aerobics at the gym, but we'll try and sort that out in a moment or two. So now that leg wants to sort of go back a bit. He has got a bit more of a lean to him, so I might need to... Yeah, okay. Grab that image as well. For anybody wondering, I do have the images off on my second screen, which is how I'm... Of course, it would be really useful if that shrunk a bit more. Computer, would you be willing to shrink this window? Apparently, under no circumstances am I allowed to shrink that window. Excellent. So, yeah, I feel like maybe this one needs to go back even further, but I don't know if it's going to be willing to go back even further. But maybe we just want this to go sort of further forward. Yeah, that's not completely unacceptable, but this leg I feel now has to be slightly higher. Oops. Don't do that. I'll slightly readjust that head so he's still sort of... Yeah, not too bad. Again, we'll need to rearrange the head again, but... What else is that bone controlling? Because... Oh no, apparently it is just the head. I like heavy metal. I like heavy metal. Metal, 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 metal. Heaviest of metals. Yeah. Not the point. Curious what some of these little ones do. I'm assuming... Hey, you said 69. Oh. I am Rhino. Hello. Get rid of that. Because I can't deny it, his neutral face is probably acceptable, truth be told, so I don't necessarily need to fiddle too much with those. I'm still slightly disappointed quite how low this leg seems to be. Can't deny, raising that leg is, I think, going to prove slightly awkward. Yeah, it's a slightly awkward Z-axis. It is beneficial sometimes to do both sort of axes. Although having said that, I don't like. No, I think that worked. want to do. Head's not quite where I want it to be again. Because we sort of want more. Perhaps a bit more like that. That foot is definitely still bugging me somewhat. Well, okay, that might be the axis we want. Flatten it out a little bit. Yeah, that's not terrible. Or it's better than it was anyway. I'm going to go ahead and assume this one is the very tips of the toes. Yeah, probably not going to want to bother with that one because I don't think he's going to go sort of tiptoeing around places. It's not really a sort of rhino thing to do, is it? Going tiptoeing. He looks a bit like he's sort of trying to launch himself into the sky. Look at me, I'm doing a Naruto run! Look, Ma, I'm going faster because I'm Naruto running. Let's stop doing that. Right, easiest arm. I don't think either of these arms are going to be easy because it's a full-fledged sort of rotation, which is usually quite difficult. Oops, I didn't mean to just hit Y. No, well, yeah. It's the only problem with keyboard shortcuts. When you start pushing the wrong keyboard shortcuts, you end up a little bit in trouble. I'm just trying to sort of figure out the best way of basically nudging the arm around so that it's basically the hand is kind of facing that. It's not doing too badly. But you've got to be a little bit cautious because I think you do stand a chance, and I am doing it a little bit. But it is basically fully twisting the model, which is not necessarily what you want. But, yeah, I seem to have mostly accomplished what we wanted to do there. Now the only problem is trying to do it with the other arm. Careful. Subtlety is your best friend in this scenario. It doesn't matter particularly if the textures warp, of course, because it's being designed to be utilised in a miniature form, and as such, the textures are of no consequence. The textures are very much a sort of secondary aspect that makes little to no difference. The only, I say little to no difference, they actually make a fairly heavy-duty amount of difference in the grand scheme of things, because what I will do is I will try, once he's posed, I'm going to probably run extra geometry along some of these armour plates in order to basically pump them up so that you end up with a sort of a decent looking model. Well, theoretically decent looking model, I suppose. Kind of the right direction we want. Yeah. That's kind of what we're after. A little bit lower. And that perhaps a little bit higher. Still thinking he's looking a little bit extreme on the tilt forward. That's the whole model, which arguably maybe I do need to go a little bit more extreme on the tilt for the whole model. 100% sold on that fact. Because all that's really doing is bringing his legs more in line with one another, and I don't necessarily want his legs more in line with one another. So he's not going to be lifting with his knees. He's going to be lifting with his back. Oops, too close. So for anybody using Blender, one of the things that's quite interesting with it is if, say, I have my mouse, I believe the mouse is visible here. Yeah, no. Huh. Oh no, there it is. There we go. If I select this bone, which I have, and I want to rotate the bone, I can use the shortcut key R for rotate. I'm not going to necessarily name every single move I'm doing, but on this occasion I will just explain this. If I have the mouse location right next to the bone and I hit R, it's going to be quite extreme. Although, having said that, it's not as bad as it can be sometimes, but sometimes it's quite difficult to sort of... Subtle movements will move him quite a long way. Whereas if you make sure your mouse is a fair distance away and you do it, now, see, that's about the same movement that got him to bend right forward, and now I can sort of really subtly move him. I can still, whoops, I can also hit the mouse button and release him. But I think what we want to do is we do want to do that bone, but we want to do that bone from the front view. Yeah. Shouldn't be outrageous. I mean, sure, shit, not perfect, but, you know. What is perfect? What is perfect? I don't know. Nothing I do is ever perfect, so you just sort of go with what you can get out of it and hope for the best. Right, let's have a look at these reference images again, so that we can try and maybe... Because there's still something that's just a little bit about it, which... The problem is, to make that look like a proper leg, it does need to sort of rotate in the way I am rotating it. Which is slightly problematic for that foot. That foot is struggling to be okay because it's not really designed to be sort of... I suppose we could go... I said I wasn't going to use much in the way of toes, but I suppose we could try and sort of put that back foot on doors. Certainly that foot appears to be sort of mostly flat like that. I suppose the other odd little thing about the pose I'm sort of copying, it doesn't have to be exact, so I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it if it's not quite identical, but the foot does sort of come out that way. Does that look okay? A bit funky for the texture, but again, sometimes it's worthwhile dropping down into non-textured mode, because that's basically what you're going to be printing. I need to do those fists because I think that's going to improve things quite a bit. Pop the armature back on. Whoops, not the button I was after. It would certainly help a little bit, but doesn't help with that sort of going forwardy sort of thing. This one quite what I want, but maybe afterwards. Kind of a bit in the chest there, isn't it? Interesting enough. That suggests he has a slightly bigger... Can't just rip those bones apart. I would say no. Well, let's just put it back where it was. Yeah, I wanted it forward more, which is what we've got. Undo button is often your friend. So before we start sort of fiddling too much more with feet and legs, it does just need to be sort of, yeah, maybe it does need to be further forward to get what I'm after, so that I can bend it back a little bit more. Also possibly, no, I think maybe we'll stick with the idea of sort of, he's on his toe there, because I think that's going to look subtly better maybe. Difficult to know for certain. Let's have a save, because it's not necessarily what I would say is going well, but it's equally not necessarily going so badly that I want to delete it all. Or I would want to risk it deleting, I suppose. It's about where I want it to go. Yeah, let's try and get the fist in there and see if we can't do a lovely fist of some kind. Which I think is going to be slightly awkward, but we'll struggle on and see what we can muster. So really we want that. Nope. Oh, sorry, bent his little finger back a little too much. No, you do not bend my fingers, please. Please do not bend my... Ah, you bent my finger again. Stop it. Ah, wrong way again, you bastard. Are you trying to injure me or trying to help me get the epic pose? Well, at the moment, I fear it's a little bit of both, mate. Oh dear, that little finger. He was a wrong one, wasn't he? That little finger. Much like this one. Fingers are hard work. I'm not going to lie. Fingers are hard work. Especially because you want to sort of. So it's a fine line for getting them to sort of overlap in a tasteful sort of way, without them sort of folding in too badly on one another. I think we're sort of mostly getting somewhere. That's, there we go, that's more what we want. See, remember when I told you the advice about not rotating things too close to the too close to the bone thing you're trying to rotate. Yeah, I just fell into the trap of doing that. So it's very easily done. I didn't know he had little spikes on his gauntlets there. That's quite nice. Ew. I have to get rid of that measuring cube because it keeps getting in the way of the camera. So sometimes it starts getting very confusing as to precisely how the bones are actually functioning. Mostly because you do kind of want the bones on top of everything, but it also starts getting a little bit confusing trying to figure out what is and isn't on top of one another. What? That's not... I mean, if I was a professional, I'd probably be very dissatisfied with that. But as a sort of... this will probably suffice as a fist. I might... what's quite nice is I can, in some of areas, what should be viable is sort of puffing them up a little bit with sculpt mode. And what you can do is, I mean, it is literally the blow up sort of tool. So what I might do is run the sort of puff up tool over this area in order to just expand them ever so slightly. That thumb's not looking quite as natural as I kind of want it to look. Oh, that's a bit better. That's not, okay, that's not. That might be. It's not so bad. Back from walking the dog. Was it a good walk? Did the dog enjoy it? I suppose is the crucial thing. I mean, it's not necessarily easy to tell if the dog enjoyed it, but did he seem to be happy? Again, you got a little bit of awkwardness there. Would you consider showing the keys you were pressing? I've seen it on other streams. It was very useful. I believe there is an option of doing that. I just don't know where it is. I might be able to find it. I don't know if it's a automatic add-on that's there. No. Yeah, you're right. It would be quite a good sort of extra, but I don't know. I can't remember what it's called for starters, which is not helpful. And I don't think it's an inbuilt add-on for Blender. I think it might be a sort of... I think it might be an extra one I'd have to look up. The dog enjoyed, and I'm glad it's still cold out. I mean, I must admit, I prefer it being cold than hot. But yeah, I might look into it for next time. For now, I'll probably leave it. But most of it's fairly sort of easy to remember shortcuts a lot of the time. Which is basically, whenever I'm rotating anything, I am hitting the R key. And whenever I am locking it to an axis... It's the axis, it's the button that the axis is on. So here I'm locking it to the Z axis, and that is Z. So it's basically just RZ, 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 RZ constantly. Likewise here, we want it slightly tilted like that. So that was RX. And again, we want it slightly up there. So RX. And stuff like that. So it is quite I do find Blender reasonably intuitive in terms of that, because its shortcuts are relatively logical things that match up with what you'd perhaps expect from the things. The only one I think that never fully was logical to me, although I think it was Can't Sleep who pointed out that it could just be considered the grab tool, is when you want to move things, you end up moving, you end up using the key G, which, as I say, I think Can't Sleep might have sort of solved that one slightly by realising that that could very easily be the grab key, and that's grab key, not crab key. We don't have crab keys on Blender, I don't think. Do that one being a little bit more. What I might end up having to do is hiding a couple of these bones so that I can work a bit more on some of the others, because they are... some of these bones are currently sort of just getting in the way. I'm Rhino! Thumbs up! I'm going to deal with that thumb in a moment. But for now, he's just like, hey, I'm Rhino. Hello. Right, turn that back on. And now let's try and figure out the best way of getting this thumb in the position I would like this thumb to be in. Ow! Stop bending it backwards. It's one of those things where I don't necessarily mind it being... I don't mind it overlapping too much, because... I mean, essentially, if you think about your sort of fleshy bits, they all sort of squeeze in on one another, and so it will sort of not look terrible. Okay. So if you need, again, the logic of Blender, if you need to hide something, you hit the H key, and H for hide. Which I suppose arguably is your native language German, I think? I don't know that for certain. I may be making terrible mistakes. But I can't deny, if your native language is German, I suppose all of these sort of obvious things to me are not necessarily obvious to you, because I don't know what the German for hide is, and if it's not something that begins with an H, well, that's a problem. Thinking English when it comes to tools. Oh, well, that's not too bad then. Yeah, that's... I mean, it's and if you need to unhide things, you Alt H. So basically, sort of almost you're doing the opposite. Alt key seems to be almost universally the sort of opposite of things. He's just having a wank. I suppose arguably, he don't want to do it. You don't want to do it just from the wrist. You want to get the arm involved. There you go. And if he really wants to go powering, oh no, that's more. He's really, that's just him punching someone, isn't it? Oh, there you go. If I wanted to punch someone, hi-ya! Left hook. Let me guess. That's... oh fuck! That is the left hand. Excellent. I will just point out I am terrible at doing things, but still. Using English programs since I was 12, pirated copies for English or Russian only. I see. It's a compound movement. What, the masturbation? Yeah. You want it sort of flexing from the arm and the wrist, I suppose. Anyway, so... am I satisfied? I mean, for the amount of work I've done, which is only about, I don't know, half hour to 40 minutes, it's not that bad. Couple of key areas that are slightly annoying. I think this hand needs to go down a bit more, which is a full arm, just rotation, I think. And the other slight thing is that clipping quite as much as it does. I might try and work on that, but let's deal with the arm first, because I think it is going to be the easiest. of the things. We'll bring it down sort of via a few different things, perhaps. Oops, not button I intend. If you go into edit mode, you can edit any of these bones, move them around and stuff. I don't know. Yeah, no, you don't want to do that much. But it does look like it's kind of removed everything, but at the moment you go out of that mode, it's because everything's... It's very much like if I head back to object mode, select Rhino, and then select the mesh, and try to edit the mesh, he will just warp back into T-posey type position, but then immediately back again. So if you do hit a button and he suddenly warps back into his pose, you've probably not completely fucked it. So this leg is a problem child, isn't it? Because I think essentially I've rotated it too far for what it wants to be able to do. But ultimately, I want it. Not necessarily quite so I display my crotch unto you, but I do want an element of I display my crotch unto you. Yeah, which one's going to get sort of... Yeah, maybe I have to embrace the idea of him not having his foot quite as high as I sort of wanted, but I think that is better. Not perfect, but it is better. And maybe I do want to sort of... Oh yeah, he's doing a sort of jive dance. Yeah, it's definitely going to be that one that wants to sort of come up if I want to sort of... Yeah. I think that one's been the key problem child all along, hasn't it? Although that one's not doing much better. Okay, that's not... Just, I do feel like I want a larger gap than a tiny area there, but I can't quite get them to do it. But there you go. The model I would like to repose of such dynamic poses. I'm struggling getting the rig in place. Yeah. See, I think the issue, I suspect, I can make no guarantees with this. Now, because this is a video game model, if I go into edit mode, you can see here. Now, try and ignore the fact that these are triangles, because if you think of these two triangles, that makes up a four-sided shape, which is a quad. And when you build, especially video game models, animated models, anything like that, you basically want them to be quads. Everything needs to be quads. You don't want triangles. And I acknowledge the fact that there's triangles here, but remember, two triangles make a quad. And so this geometry is beautiful. This is the sort of geometry I can only ever dream of. It's so clean. It is so beautiful. And therefore, running a rig through this... Now, granted, it came with its own rig, but running a rig through this geometry is a breeze. You could easily do your own rig if you wanted to on this thing. Because it's just magnificent. It's beautiful. Clean as you like. However, what I suspect you would find with a lot of, especially ones that are done in sculpt mode and stuff, when it comes to sculpting, you get so many polygons and so many shapes that the rig just has like so many points. So again, if I try and sort of re-emphasize the idea, if we go into edit mode, now think about that one single head bone. That one head bone is controlling basically all of those polygons. Now that seems like quite a lot of polygons, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not. If we grab most of them, I'm not going to worry about necessarily grabbing every single last one, because it's only a sort of approximate example. You can use that tool as well. If you ever do need to use a quick selection, hit the C key and you get this thing up, and you can sort of go sweepy, 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 sweepy. You do always have to remember to turn it off though with a right click. But that entire headpiece, with some bonus chunks of armour that I can't bother to remove, we're looking at 1,649 faces. Now, in a sculpted piece, because a lot of the sculpts you find don't do like a retopology, you could find that being twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, which means the bone, if you try and run a bone into it, it's going, I need to move how many vertices? No, I'm just not doing it. And it will sort of tap out and just go no. Whereas here, again, emphasis on how clean this geometry is. I mean, I almost wish I had a sort of name for you as to who was the original person who built this geometry, because it's, you know, arguably it's a professional grade geometry that many people build, but it is nonetheless, it is a very good piece of geometry. Just try and, I'm just basically now trying to sort of get this leg to be as high as I possibly can without having it all go sort of as horribly as it seemed to last time. So this one, we kind of want that to be a little bit flatter in this position. But that might be where there's some struggle, because I know that is going to be a likely potential for struggling in terms of the machine. Yeah, I think that's doing reasonably well. Drop a little save just to make sure. Yeah, you know what? I'm not unsatisfied. I'm sufficiently pleased with that. It's not quite. I wonder if it'd be worthwhile. I've only ever really been doing those on a sort of. You can have them on a bit more of a lean. No, I don't know. Should have kept my ex. She's a video game artist. Oh, hell yeah. I would love to know more video game artists, but I suppose I should really sort of embrace and indulge myself into more of a sort of 3D grouping, but I follow a few artists on Twitter, but we want to sort of this one. We could try. I don't know what, save it just in case, but try just sort of. If you ever need to get out of a tool as well, right click. That removes the changes. So if you move something back and you go, I'm not sure I know what I'm doing or what I want to do, right click and it snaps back. I just want to sort of do that and then check the front to see if I've fucked it up. Because I like to constrain on axes, but Sometimes it doesn't always want to look its best when you are constraining it to an axis. Okay. Don't know if I'm going to quite get... I suppose this is, again, just playing with it on different axes and stuff sometimes works, because that allows me to get that a little bit more open and get him a little tiny bit more sort of look at my crotch. My crotch is amazing. Now I want to go back to local. We can just reposition that ever so slightly like that, and then yeah, that one probably work. I'm trying to make the feet as flat as possible, but I might end up readjusting depending on what I actually put in there as a sort of obstacle for him. But I think we've managed a pose that I quite like. Yeah. Now I've just got to figure out precisely what I want to do with the rest of this. Because I must admit, he's actually a lot more armoured than I ever gave him credit for. Which means my usual method might not quite do what I'm after, but I suppose we'll see. Now that is interesting. Oh, that... Never mind. Ah, no, there we go. Get rid of that. That's because it was in pose mode. So yeah, at the moment, it's very sort of flat for starters, and very sort of just kind of meh, isn't it? It's very sort of squidgy. I'm going to save it before I do this, because this is the sort of thing that will break the machine. Okay, no, that's all right. And it has, I think, yeah, that has sort of... Oh, that has definitely tightened some things up. Of course, it has also ruined some other things. I've got a theory on a few of those. Okay. Now I'm very... pinkies look a bit off, don't they? I don't know. I mean, certainly they are sort of folding in on themselves a little bit. Oh, also, that one is a little bit off to the skew there, so I might do something about that. Grab that. Go to pose mode. Oh, I think I've angered the beast by putting that on. Let's get rid of that for now. Back to the pose mode. There we go. I think that's lined it up a bit more. How's the other one looking? That one might a little bit on the X there. I think might not got a miss there. Oops, not the button I wanted. That's the button I wanted. Now let's save it again before I do this next step, because this might go horribly wrong. So, I am going to merge some vertices. Okay. Nothing major looks to have broken. Come on, I believe in you, Blender. I believe in you. I'm slightly curious. What is that back bit? Okay, it is technically part of the armor. It's just, yeah, I think I've slightly folded that armor in a little bit more. I'm not too fussed by the warping of the texture, but the actual mesh is a little bit screwy at the back here, which I don't know. Might be something to solve with extra geometry rather than trying to fiddle around with the geometry it currently has. There'll be the desire to sort of do that whole chest plate, I think. So I might be able to just pop a bit over the top and deal with that situation, perhaps. But it's basically where I've been rotating the shoulders and stuff. I'll have a look and see if... let's just save it, because I think so far we've done okay, but I can't... Yeah, I can't just move that. The other thing we need to do is take that off again. Sculpt, not sculpt, pose. Yeah, it's kind of where it wants to sit like that, but I don't want it to sit like that. Maybe I wonder, is that doing exactly the same thing? Yes, in fact worse, if anything. Wait, yeah, I more want that. Although having said that, that muscle, that piece of armour muscle is looking a bit awkward as well, isn't it? Whereas if I put it down there... That might be doing it slightly better. I mean, that's warping around as well, but again, I want it to do what I want it to do. This is not what I want it to do. I'm just curious if there was a better way of doing that, but as far as I can tell, no, there really is not. That maybe, and then let's try and mitigate it by yeah, it's lost a bit of what I wanted in terms of pose, but not so bad. I'm just sort of futzing around essentially, trying to get the best the best pose I can with as limited sort of full-on warping as well. As I think doing the shoulders slightly less so is probably ultimately going to sort of pay dividends for the thing. But let's just try. Okay. Again, it's not quite perfect, but it's going to sort of open up the arms a little bit more, perhaps. I think that's going to be crucial to sort of crucial for the idea of having a sort of power pose, essentially, which is sort of what this is. But yeah, I think at this point we might be sort of suitably satisfied. Oh no, we're in pose mode, that's the problem. So why aren't you doing the things? But there we go, we've got a lot less peculiarity on the back there, which I think is going to be beneficial. Let's have a look. Yeah, I might get away with just the one. If you're interested, this mod here that I put on that tightened him up essentially, so it goes from that to it's called the subsurface modifier. It basically adds a load more geometry to smooth things out. And can sometimes be quite useful, but equally can add a lot of geometry and therefore make it awkward. And this leg, yeah, I mean that leg is going to be awkward, but that leg is going to be awkward, so I don't think there's much I can do about that. But yeah, I think we've got the fundamentals of something decent enough. Now what we want to just do is grab that, and we'll bring him down. Shouldn't be too much of a bother. I can't deny we might end up pumping him back up above again, depending on what we do with the exact stance, but we do sort of want him touching, always touching. Just wondering if there's a way of getting that toe a bit better, but yeah, I think that's a little better. Still possibly a little bit awkward, the fact that he's not full foot on ground, but in order to get the sort of stance, I fear that's about all I can do. I suppose arguably he could be sort of about to step over, so he's just lifting that foot over. So I think that's going to be unreasonable. Cool. Now then, let's go like that. Figure out which armour plates I feel are the most important. Probably all of them, in fairness, but I do just wonder. Stuck in pose mode again, of course. Let's see. I doubt that's going to work. No, I didn't think it would, which is fine. Again, didn't think it would, but always worth a shot sometimes. It's basically now just figuring out the best way of accomplishing what I want. Which I can't deny. It could be possibly better to leave the head as it is, but then again, there's a possibility that it would actually end up being better. Let's just clear sharp, interesting. Clear seam? Oh, right, there were seams. Fair enough. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Wouldn't have made any difference. Not a problem. So... again, I'm just sort of umming and ahhing a little bit about how how best to accomplish what it is I'm after. Which is always the way, really. You just have to... You do just end up having to kind of... Do I want to do it this way? Do I want to do it that way? Or do I want to do it a way I've not even thought of yet? Which, that one's always the cleverest of ways, because you've not thought of it yet. So you can always guarantee it's the best way possible to accomplish the thing you're after. Helps if you don't keep deselecting the one thing you want. God knows what's happening when I miss there. I feel like I'm probably selecting a ton of other geometry, but we're alright. And what I'm trying to do is grab all of his helmet, but his helmet is just too large. No, I'm trying to grab all the sort of side jaw pieces of his helmet just to see whether I can basically just expand it all at once and see what happens, really. But if I do that, it is going to sort of... Whoops, that's not quite what we wanted. Hey, big bird. No. Yeah, it's certainly gonna... Oh, no. 0.2 then? No. Okay. 0.02 then. Okay, there we go. That's a bit more like it. I do feel like if I was to do that, I possibly want it. I'll do it and see what it looks like from a slightly greater distance. I am beginning to think it might be easier to do it my alternate way, which is to add extra geometry rather than trying to sort of expand the pre-existing geometry. Which does beg the question, which area do I feel is going to be the easiest to start on if I do plan on applying extra geometry? Especially because if I wanted stuff like that, that's going to be troublesome. Now we come to the phase. The phase of the many, many I'll drop a save while I'm humming. Keep looking at him. Just keep looking at him. See if inspiration strikes. Just keep looking at him. See if inspiration strikes. I'm not 100% confident it will, but we'll see. But basically I'm just wondering precisely how to thicken his arm a bit. And it's difficult because they are all... They're very textury, this one. Very texture based. But also lots and lots of them all overlapping and stuff, which makes my usual methods a little bit awkward. I'll tell you what, I'm slightly zoning in on these leg bits. So what we might do, I might start with that thigh, see where we can go from there, essentially. So this is kind of how I do it. I've added a plane. I've rotated that plane, but that plane is not rotated along the way I thought it was going to be. Wait, are we? Oh, we might be because I was in the local. Right. And everything's going wrong. Yes, indeed. Do we have that plane? I don't think we do, because I went back too far. Right. We'll go back to global and now rotate X90. There we go. That's what I was expecting to have happen. But yes, we've made a little plane. And now what we want to do is there's a little button up there. I don't know if you can see the button. No, not especially. So we'll drop the overlay for a moment. Little button there. It's a magnet button, magnet symbol. It's called snapping. Face and project individual elements. They will not be on automatically. What you want to do, I think the original is increment. What you want to do is drop it down to face, and then that will be unticked. You want to tick that. For this method, at least. There are many other ways of, many other reasons to snap things and do all that, but for this method, it's very much, you want that one. And now we want to edit mode. Hit 1 gets you in vertices. 1 is vertices, 2 is edges, 3 is faces. If you're unaware, a vertex is this little corner piece. You've got 4 vertices there. Edges are edges. You've got 4 edges there as well. And then the face is the entire sort of thing. So we want vertices, and what's usually quite good as well, if we use a shrink wrap and we target the mesh, that should all be good. And basically, yeah, that should be, yeah, I think that is doing what I want it to do, which is basically attaching itself, you know, in a way, sort of just attaching itself to this mesh. And what you can do is then, I'm basically just hitting G a lot. Yeah, if we maybe, if I avoid that area, I probably want to sort of wrap round. There does appear to be a bit of a curve there, so if we try and focus on this curve. And then what you want to do, in order to get more geometry out of this, you select a couple of vertices where you want the extra geometry, and you hit E. And that should, yeah, I'm fairly certain, yes that is, creating a new plane. And then you just sort of move your vertices where you want your vertices, and you create a new plane, and you move that plane where you want it. You don't have to worry too much about it sinking in. That's sort of the point of this method. It is being shrunk wrap and magnetized, snapped to the underlying geometry. And so now we just want to sort of, whoops, ignore that bit. That was just me pushing the wrong button. It didn't make any difference though. Unfortunately, my hands have a habit of pushing the wrong buttons. Tell you what we'll do sort of along this area here until we get to what I'm going to try and make as a gap in the armour. No, that's probably alright the way it is. And then just sort of, I'm going to try and follow roughly. So you can see here I'm making roughly a sort of in line with what I've done over there as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be exact, but it does help slightly when we're going to fill in the middle area of this geometry. Although we'll probably end up having to do slightly more here because we're going slightly higher, which will prove awkward. At any point in time, you can always change to a different piece of geometry and try manipulating that out in order to do it. Sometimes, of course, you may think to yourself, there was a better way of doing this. And at that point, you can just delete basically all of the things. I think the better way of doing this is I'm going to want to just grab that entire edge and bring that out several times for that. And now fill that in there. Bring this line up to where we want it, and basically we want that one to end up there. Whoops, did not mean to do that. Sometimes it's easier to do it in X-ray mode because you get to say, oops, that's not what I wanted either. Be careful not to hit the F key. You will attempt to fill an area, and you don't usually want to fill an area. I'm going to move a lot of this geometry to many different places, so it should work out. Although having said that, that's clearly wants to be higher there, so we'll try and... Don't necessarily have to worry too much about the state of the geometry, but there is a sort of... There is the notion of having clean geometry versus having sort of quite shitty geometry. And so sometimes you do want to just sort of... You want to spread things out a little bit. Try and get them to sort of flow. The idea of getting your geometry to flow. So have them fairly evenly spaced and sort of at a nice angle and stuff. Basically, the more attractive your geometry looks, usually the better your geometry is. Alright, so that's sort of our first panel. And at this point, I think what we'll try and do is solidify it. That's going the wrong way, that's fine. Yep. 0.5. 0.75. Yeah. It's not outrageous. And then usually worthwhile subsurf. And up it to 2. So now it's a slightly smoother thing. Solidify basically just gives it a bit of... obviously where I've been working on just a plane, that doesn't really do much. With Solidify attached, it is doing a lot more. So basically I've now got what is fundamentally a sort of armour plate. Now, can't deny it. I want to move those a little bit more. Closer to that. I also didn't... What have I done? I don't know. I've vertex slid. I don't know if I really wanted to do that, but I did want to do that move. Excellent. I didn't really factor in that, and this isn't necessarily going to be the world's greatest of solutions to this, but we do want a little bit of an extra... Oops. If I can get that point where I want it to be, I would be laughing. But we do want this extra sort of divot of armour, and basically we want to just sort of place our points in a sort of suitable fashion. And then you can see when I tab out, I've now got that little extra divot. As I say, I don't know if I necessarily fully agree with the way I did that, but then again, it worked, so fuck it. I'll give that a little save. Now, this is entirely dependent on how you wanted to do it. You could just start that process from scratch and bring in a brand new plane, bring in a brand new shrink wrap, brand new... Well, the snap is either on or off. But brand new shrink wrap, brand new solidify, brand new subserve, da-da-da-da-da. But the easiest method is if you extrude, you've now got a sort of loose plane there. If you then head to the plane, the face value, you can grab that face, you can hit Y, that detaches that face, and then you can push G, and you've now got a piece of geometry that has got the same modifiers and is the same piece. It's the same item, it's just now able to go elsewhere. So I can now go ahead and find a suitable way of building this next piece of armour, which will probably, like I said last time, not 100% necessary, but if I do sort of match the volume of vertices or edges or whatever you want to measure it in, if I try and match the two together, that should hopefully make for a sort of slightly more in sync, and sometimes different angles will look different, obviously, because it's different angles. Just the way I did Hella, I just adjusted the angles in such a way that it looked all right. It's one of those ones where, because all I'm really doing here is trying to add a bit of thickness to areas, it doesn't honestly make that much difference, truth be told. So I'm sort of tidying, but I don't think it makes too much difference, because when you sort of 3D print, the tolerances are, it won't care that much. It cares whether it's big or like little. It's not going to care too much about the exact sort of fraction of a millimetre measurements. Now basically we'll do the same as we did last time, which is sort of, I don't necessarily need too much geometry here, although the more geometry you put in, the more it's going to be able to sort of stick to the man's thigh, essentially. And you're always concerned if the man's got a sticky thigh. I'm sorry, sir. Do you have a wet wipe? Why do you need a wet wipe? I've got a sticky thigh. If you encountered a person who did that, you would be concerned, wouldn't you? And rightfully so, in fairness. Rightfully so. That's another sort of slightly rounded area, isn't it? Which I don't know if I care too much about that. And there's the secret of all 3D modelling. How much do you care, and how much can you get away with? I think basically that's the secret to all forms of everything, really, isn't it? I must admit, I'm going to just slide this one down a bit so it's a little bit more in the middle. There you go. Just looks a bit nicer. And again, if it looks quite nice, it usually means it's quite functional. And now, there we go. We've got a second piece of thigh armour. Now, if you feel like it looks a bit too sort of rounded, you can do what's considered support geometry. And you see that's a little bit more, it's just sort of counteracting the subsurface modifier. I must admit, what I'm probably going to want to do is something more like this. Just spread this one out a little bit more, because the fundamentals of the subsurface are pretty much what it's doing is it's taking the gap between these two and halving it. So basically putting like a thing there and a thing there. And what that's doing is also trying to smooth things as well. So you end up with a slightly smoother way of doing things. You end up with a smoother shape. The longer this gap is, the smoother it will get. So you can see there, basically you can see there, that's very smooth. If I do put that in, that should be not quite as smooth. Difficult to see for certain. If you saw it next to one another, I think it'd be more obvious. But just randomly sort of putting it on and off is not necessarily doing that much. But yeah, and then if we drop down to what essentially it's going to theoretically print like, is the idea. Probably going to want to sort of do some fanciness around the actual model itself. So I don't think that's going to work the way I would like it to, as it so often doesn't. But we grab basically this perimeter here. Now this is a sort of an alternate way, essentially, I think, of doing the support geometry I just referred to, which is Shift E, and you can add what is called a crease. I'm going to do a sort of 0.75 crease and see what happens. Oh, no. Okay, there we go. It wasn't happy for a moment there. And it has done a lot less than I was hoping for. Well, okay, never mind. Let's, yeah, I'll undo that and get rid of the crease and worry about it later. But fundamentally, the idea was that it would solidify the bits a little bit more, because they are still looking a little bit like they're sort of just lumps rather than actual armour plates. But then again, my own little armour plates there are looking a little bit like armour plates. So hopefully, once I've rigged, no, not rigged, that's, I was thinking more jerry-rigged than actual rigging rigged. But once I've sort of jerry-rigged a bunch of armour plates around it, it should look, I mean, tolerable. That might be a bit too bigger a gap. I'll go in there and have a play with that gap and see if I can't sort of shrink it down a bit. I suppose arguably. Let's look there and see. No, even at the bottom it looks like it's a very small gap. Just thinking, because it definitely seems to sort of widen at the top. So if we just try and make a regulation size along the entire gap, it might look a bit better. But really, at this point, it's just fiddling. It's fiddling like that. Really don't think it made much difference. As I do feel like that needs a little bit more. Yeah. That being just that touch straighter, I think, has worked better. Which may mean we want to do that there as well. Yeah. Might have been a bit too extreme there, but yeah. Not too bad. Must admit, it should really leave sort of that extra geometry until last. But because basically the more geometry you have, the more difficult it is to start manipulating things, because as you can see here, in order to just raise up this bit, I am having to now grab 2 points instead of 1 point, which at this point, 2 points instead of 1 point, who cares? It's fine, it doesn't make any difference. But if you start thinking about when you get into a really complicated mesh and you're starting to have to try and grab, you know, 60 odd vertices just to move one line, that is where make damn certain. Oops, it's not. What am I doing? I don't know. It's all going horribly wrong. It's fine. If you're having to grab like 60 odd vertices to move one line, that's where you definitely want to make sure that you're I can actually use that a little bit more as well, I think. Plus we might be able to sort of just wrap around like that. Yeah, not terrible. But welcome, Mr. Oni! You're a resident sleeper today. We'll just try and get that a bit more solid as well. So yeah, that's not too bad. And theoretically, as is so often the way, it's all theoretical until you actually print it. The theory, of course, is it will print that high up. Oh, I'll tell you one other thing I usually do. Only rim, I think, is the one we need. Or the one that's slightly optimal. Yeah. Because you don't really need... So we're now inside the model. But if you leave only rim off, what you get is that plane is still there. Whereas if you go only rim, that plane no longer exists, and it's only, literally what it says, it's only the rim. And as such, it doesn't have an extra face trying to sort of fuck about on the inside. I don't honestly think it makes much difference, because when I did Spidey Santa even, all I really did was I didn't think of only rim even, but when I did Hella, I did remember only rim, and both of them seemed to work. So clearly of no real consequence whatsoever. So why did you mention it? I don't know. Now, this is where we could... This is where it gets interesting, kids. No, it's not going to get that interesting, I assure you, but still. It's going to be interesting to know how I'm going to do that little sort of hole divot bolt. I don't know precisely what it's meant to be, but it exists, and therefore I sort of want to try and reflect it in this plate that I'm doing. I think it is meant to be sort of like a... Yeah, I think it is meant to be like a bolt type thing. I'm going to probably just keep it fairly simple and just sort of go with the idea of it's some kind of hole. And therefore what we'll do... I don't know what we'll do, actually. I sort of know what. There's a sort of plan in my brain, but it's not 100%. So we'll see. See what happens. We'll do this line first because I think it's going to be slightly easier to just manoeuvre these points. I may be slightly angry with the lack of gold too, and then sleep. I see. I don't necessarily blame you for being... Oh, you bastard. What am I doing? I don't know. As I say, every now and again, my hands just don't really do what they're told. And they instead decide to sort of just go off and do their own thing. And it's very troublesome, to be honest, but there you go. What we might want to do there is perhaps an extra one. In fairness, that actually reflects what we've got on the other side as well anyway, but so that's not unreasonable. So put that there. Put that there. Now what I'm thinking... So here, if you grab two vertices and then you hit M for merge, you can decide what you're doing. One of the best ways, because I want that point there, so I've selected the point I want to move, and then the point I want to move it to, and then M, and then you merge at last. And what it does is it merges at the last point there. So yeah, that should work. That probably won't work. What am I trying to do? That will probably do what I want. Yes. And then this one. If, of course, you do accidentally go, oh, I've picked that one first, I've hit that one, you can merge it first as well. You've got both options. That's not a huge problem. Yeah, I think we've worked out this bottom area. This bottom area seems to have gone fine. So it's figuring out the top area that I think is going to be slightly more troublesome. So we can do a bit there, a bit there. Okay, that's the problem. Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes it's very nice to have the X-ray. Sometimes it's very nice to not have the X-ray. The benefit of being able to turn it on and off. For those of you at home, you can probably turn it off with Alt-Z, I believe is the shortcut for that. Mine, however, doesn't work for starters, and it could primarily, I think, because it brings up an alternate window, which is always slightly awkward. Will you please? There we go. Got there in the end. So yeah, we basically want to do that, and then that will work out nicely. And then if we extrude that up, we can merge those two. And then if we extrude that, we can merge those two. And there we go. I think we will probably want to rearrange that one a little bit, but outside of that, I think we may have our hole. Because it may not look like a hole at the moment, but yeah, that's not too bad. The subsurface will try and round it out. So it works as a whole. It works as a whole after all. If the game can just give me 2 free wins so I can get it already, that'd be great. It would be majestic, but I'm going to get Eldlick and a brick hand instead, though. That is, I mean, that does seem to be the most likely of outcomes. 9 times out of 10 with the game. At the last, and then merge at the last again. Now we just want to. I feel like that one's in line with the rest of them, but it just feels like it should be slightly lower to bring it in line with some of its other bits and bobs. Easiest way of doing this now, I don't know. Is the honest truth, I do not know. I wonder. Yeah, let's. So we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I'd known the tune, I'd have gone into Mambo number 5. But unfortunately, it's not quite as lodged in my brain as I was hoping for. Trying to sort of. Again, it's just that sort of trying to neaten it up as best I can and. See what happens, really. Yeah, so that should be fine. And now this, we can do maybe, don't know whether this is going to be the best or optimal solution, but it is going to be a solution. So we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once again, yes. 1, 2, 3, 5. Cool. Now, oh, that's at least worked. Now, are you going to allow like a, because it is a perfect grid, so you shouldn't really have any trouble here. Okay, no, you appear to be having trouble. No, you're definitely having, or maybe because I need to do 5, question mark? No. No, you are distinctly having trouble, machine. Which is weird, because I'm fairly certain I set that up perfectly. So it's slightly insulting that you're not able to figure this out. But maybe I'm going to discover I didn't set it up as perfectly as I thought I did, so let's undo that and see if I've fucked it. So that should be able to connect to that, yeah. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. Get rid of that again, so I think it'll be easier. No, it definitely won't be. Reposition it. 1, 2, 3, no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I did do it properly. I did work it nicely, but apparently not nicely enough. I'll tell you what, we'll do a straight up fill. We'll do it straight up fill, but you know, that's what Phil gets. And then we'll join those. It's not going to work out, is it? Or at least not the way I would like it to work out. But I suppose maybe we can overcome. Whoops, not that. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Whoops. Could you? Thank you. I'd like to point out, this is not a teachable moment. This is a man fucking it up. I suppose arguably that is a teachable moment, but that was in no way, shape or form the most optimal way of getting the geometry I wanted there. But still, it got there in the end, I suppose. Sometimes that's all you can really hope for, that it gets there in the end. Now you may be wondering, why are you just grabbing those points, sort of moving them ever so tinily, and then releasing them again? Well, you see, the way I created that geometry, it meant the plane and its vertices were inside the armor plates rather than sitting on top of the armor plates. So this is basically, hey look, you're supposed to be sort of surface snapping onto this surface. Do you remember this? And tiny motion won't make much difference to my geometry, but it will allow the machine to go, oh yeah, no, I'm with you, mate, I'm with you. I'm supposed to be snapping to the surface, right? Yeah, I got you. And then we have our next piece of armor. So you can see how it's going to take a while, but you can also see how it's sort of coming along, which is not too bad. There's still a lot of plat depth around, but all the Drytron and Zoos seem to have moved back to Blat, at least, I say. Haven't seen one since the first day of the reset. I think I've seen... Yeah, I think I saw a couple of Zoos. I don't know, maybe I just don't recognise Drytron, but it's one of those odd ones. I don't feel like I've ever been against it, but maybe I'm just not... Well, I think I've a couple of times, but ages ago. But certainly not recently. So, call this armour plating. We'll call it armour plating 001, just for the sake of future occasions where I might want armour plating 002. And basically what I might just do is I'll finish off this little piece here, wrap round, and then we'll probably call it quits. So again, all I'm doing there, extruding it, Y button to break it off, and then G button to move it around. And then once it gets... Oh, what's this? What are you? Okay. You know those occasions? Yes. So here, I think we have the issue of I extruded something I wasn't supposed to extrude. But I think it is just a random vertice, so we can just delete it. But that's the negatives of the X-ray view. Because if I go like that, you can see it's selected that point at the back, but it's also selected the point at the front. And so you just have to be careful, essentially, I think is the key thing. There's not a lot you can do. Sometimes you can do that even outside of X-ray mode, so yeah, it's just... We think it's just one of those things. It's basically one of those things that says, don't fuck it up. And unfortunately, I can't help myself. I have to fuck it up. So, the phrase, don't fuck it up, don't tend to help me. We'll try and use slightly less geometry on this one. Whoops. God damn it. That was the F key. So arguably, if it's the F key, why didn't you go, fuck it. But, now, I think there's a better way of doing this. Yes. I think we'll carry on for now. Just this right very moment, we'll carry on. Carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Carry on, my wayward son. I've been dancing new. There'll be a dandoo. Let's see. Yeah, okay, I'm not 100% sold on this, but I think we'll be alright. Yeah, no, I think we want to sort of go like that. Go like that. Go like that. This one we want to sort of a touch. That's not so bad. Yeah, I kind of need the X-ray, but I also really can't use the X-ray. Excellent. This is exactly what I wanted to have happen. I'm feeling like maybe there's a better way of doing this, but I don't know what that way is. So I guess we'll just sort of figure it out, I suppose. I do not want that point, and I do not want that point. There we go. Delete that and try and figure out an alternate solution. What that alternate solution is going to be, I'm not sure. But I am going to try and figure it out. Right. Yeah, I think we want at least one more of those. So I'll extrude that. It's probably easiest to work from this side. Go for that. Mm, 100% sold on this notion either. No. It's proving troublesome. I'm not sure precisely how I want to try and sort of solve the geometry problem. You could take an entire fucking PhD in solving geometry problems, I think. Yeah, I think maybe this is the point in time where maybe we want to go like this. Not necessarily sold on it being the best of geometries, but it is probably, and say it with me, sufficient. Sort of move these bits in to sort of match up and come into line with that. Drytron is the one that keeps ending on Herald of Ultimateness. Ah, right. So no, I don't encounter that one that often. There was a chunk of times where I did, but I don't encounter it overly often, which is probably beneficial because that's one of those ones where it actually takes them quite a significantly long time to get to that damn Herald. And therefore it feels like all the more sort of a waste of time when they inevitably sort of make me go, oh, right, you're doing that, I see. I'm not sticking around now, sir. I don't like you, and I don't like the way, I don't like the things you do, and I think you smell. All because they used the Great Herald. That's not the button I wanted. I wanted G, not E. I got confused by my letters. That's the one thing, as I say, the shortcuts are fairly logical, but sometimes the keyboard is quite small. and therefore with quite fat fingers you can very easily hit the wrong keyboard shortcut that you want, which is most disappointing, but still. We'll put an extra piece in there just because then it sort of mirrors its counterpart on the other side, which I think works quite well. You basically have a sort of a row your boat gently down the stream, belts off, trousers down, isn't life a scream? Trying to tidy up this gap here. Not hugely necessary, but sometimes it's like just, as I say, sometimes get it as tidy as you possibly can, and it usually ends up doing good things. Sometimes you can find oddities and weird bits, and that will tell you that something's gone wrong. Luckily, at the moment, there are no oddities or weird bits, so nothing's gone directly wrong currently. So how many did I sort of do it in here? So we want one for that, and then a second one. So we'll do those first. His other leg is getting in the way. And I don't mean his third leg, I mean his literal other leg. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's an unreasonable volume to do this in. 1, 2, 3, and finally 4 back there. Stretch these out to possibly meet up with their friends. And now, and I will always have you. So it looks like that is going to be 3. Yeah, it looks like we go 3 up here. Something along the lines of 1. Final third one. Over all these to that top line to try and mimic that row as best we can. And there we go. That is not an intolerable piece of armour plating. Potentially we want to sort of put in a support piece there. Support piece there. Oops, not there. That looks better. Yeah, well, it certainly don't look worse anyway. Put it that way. Again, I'm probably getting a bit too geometry happy on a couple of these sections. At the very least, a bit geometry happy too soon is the key thing. But there we go. As I say, I think I'll probably leave it there for now, but that's definitely not a terrible starting point, I don't think. And again, you can sort of see roughly whether it will print the way I'm hoping it will print or not. Difficult to know for certain. One bonus about doing it this way and using the solidify modifier is if, like with Hella, I think, that doesn't seem enough. That doesn't quite seem like I've put enough thickness in. Well, would you look at that? I can just apply more thickness because it's a modifier and not geometry. So if I feel that 1.5 thickness is going to be necessary, I can do 1.5. If I think I want all of the thickness, Rhino, be thick. Be thick! Apparently you can only go up to 10, which is probably acceptable because I don't think he needs life rings. But I must admit, I think 1.5... No, not 50. Oh, you can go higher. Oh, I see. You can't go higher by scrolling, but you can type in a higher value. So you can go as high as you like. Excellent. But that 1.5, I think, might just about do what I'm after. I might change my mind. We'll have to wait and see. Might still be, that might be a bit too thick. Maybe 1 is a slightly superior option. But see, this is it. 1.5, is that too thick? I'll go 1. Is that too thin? I'll go 1.25. All entirely adjustable. And that is the benefit of this sort of thickness line weirdness. But anyway, that's not bad. That's actually not bad. I'm quite satisfied with the pose. Or at the very least, satisfied enough. And all we've got to do is figure out what he wants to be standing on there. And possibly, I don't know, maybe have some kind of destruction by the other foot and something else destroyed as well on the actual base. But yeah, that's things for another time. I think, oh shit, it is 7:10, which I had not factored in. So yeah, I should definitely be off now. But anyway, I'll try and put him a bit more centre. There you go. A bit more zoomed in. I am Rhino. I am going to kick the shit out of you. Well, gore the shit out of you, I suppose, technically speaking. Gore the shit out of you. But yeah, it's not bad. It's going to take a while to get all that armour plates sorted, mixed with the fact that I have to figure out precisely where I want to go with each of the armour plates. I think the legs were the right place to start because it's given me a nice base on putting gaps in, and then we'll figure out that piece there, and then figure out that piece there, and then the kneecap, and then just, as I say, just work your way down an area, and then we'll try and work round. Might be worthwhile if I do this thigh, and then might be worthwhile doing that thigh next. And it's all exactly the same method. Just keep extruding, moving, extruding, moving, extruding, moving, extruding, moving. Try and keep it as simple as possible. I've failed quite badly at keeping it as simple as possible there because I kept putting extra geometry in and kept using it fairly tight geometry. If you can keep it spread and minimal, that's better. But as I say, I'm quite a failure at spread and minimal, I fear. It's just not my forte. Let's have a look. I suppose we could have a quick boo-chars. What is a boo-chars? I don't know. Where is the boo-chars? They're down the road, I think. Oh, we shall see, indeed. We shall see, indubitably. I suppose we could go there, I suppose. Although I've avoided Elden Ring for the most part. Not any real distinct reason. I have nothing against Elden Ring. It's just one of those. It's one of those odd ones where it's like, I don't want to be around Elden Ring. I don't like it. I don't want it. As I say, technically speaking, I have nothing against Elden Ring. It's just one of those odd little ones where it's like, I'm not bothered by it. I suppose that's the crucial thing. Not bothered by it. I must admit, it's probably not worth doing a raid, is it, truth be told. I think there's maybe 3 real people. Do feel free if you are a real person and you've just felt besmirched. You can sort of, I feel besmirched. You didn't count me as a real person. Although technically you don't know which 3 I'm talking about, so if 4 people turn up and go, I feel besmirched, you didn't count me as a real people, we'll have a problem. But if only 3 people turn up and go, I feel besmirched, oh wait, no, I'm one of the 3 people. So, yeah, well, I think I will leave it alone. Leave it alone. Well, yeah. Let's have a look. Let's have a look and see. I've got to watch an advert first. Fucking balls. Let's get into the creator dashboard. And I suppose we could do some. We could do some of the older we'll leave Rhino on the screen. Let him sort of just hang out there. So if you are after some entertainment tonight, I don't know whether it's being streamed or not. I don't know precisely what we're doing, but I believe Blue Bush may very well be on tonight at 9, 10, somewhere in the middle.
Cock is back.
What is this? What was that? I do not know what that was. What is this? If you're after something Sunday, well, arguably, I don't know precisely what we're doing tonight, but I think it might be Phantasmophobia on Mr. Blue Bush's stream even. On his, I mean, his version's going to be on his screen, of course, but that will also feature Mr. Can't Sleep Must Paint.
Here's me, I'm important. Here's me doing Blue Bush. Oh, here we go again.
Hey.
Dicks! Huskies.
Hey, why are there dicks on the screen? I do not understand this thing called dicks. Why would you scream dicks at a man? This seems unfortunate.
Did you hear?
I lack understanding of this dicks concept. In Russia, we're all dicks. In fairness, let's not go down that path. Let's try and ignore the fact that I think Rhino is Russian. But then again, individual Russian people not at fault.
We're talking about clipping a clip. Someone's got to clip that
dicks.
clip of a clip.
Dicks. Hello, dicks. Oh, that's actually the full clipception, isn't it? That's the clip of the clip of the clip of the clip. How many layers deep can you go? I don't know.
Oh, that.
This clipping makes me
Well, you know what
angry.
you got to do now, right?
Punch the clip.
Well, see, that
Punch
worked.
the clip.
That worked
Poof.
because...
Poof. You poop. Oh, he's gone. I did not like him. But I am Rhino. I do not like anyone. Anyway, we shall have a look here. Yes. This is an individual called Rhino Cuddy. He does painting as well. So we'll pop in and watch him do some Elden Ring. So, yeah, basically I'm going to say cheerio. And then I'm going to start the raid. And then we'll pop in and you can say hello to Mr. Rhino Cuddy or not. I will probably be off for my dinner. Because if I plan on having some dinner and getting ready for some Phantasmophobia. Fuck is that game called? I don't know. Fuck it. Never mind. I think that is it. Oddly appropriate as well, of course. The man called Rhino Cuddy. We've just come from trying to build a rhino miniature. Or manipulate, I suppose, is the key thing. It's not actually building a model. I'm manipulating a pre-existing one. But anyway, yeah. Cheerio. I'll be back on. If you do want to check out Blue Bush, we'll potentially be doing some Phantasmophobia later on today. 9:30, 10 o'clock-ish, somewhere in that vicinity. Else, I will probably be back tomorrow afternoon for Saturday RPG, I suspect. And then probably Wednesday. But it might be another bonus one Monday. I don't know. I'll probably try and make some more progress on Rhino over the weekend. See what happens. So, cheerio.